Marcus Langston stepped off the 6 o'clock train into Atlanta's Peachtree Station, briefcase swinging, his tailored suit crisp despite the humid 80-degree evening. He was just another traveler, or so he thought, until a white woman's scream sliced the crowd. "Thief!" she shrieked, pointing at him. Officers pounced, cuffs biting his wrists as slurs stung his ears. "Chief Justice," he said calmly, but they laughed. A bystander's shaky video hit the internet, going viral fast. Why didn't he fight harder? Before this story unfolds, share where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice, hit like. And subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is one you can't miss. Marcus Langston sat on a rusted bench in a dimly lit holding cell at the Peachtree Station precinct, the air thick with mildew and the faint tang of sweat. His wrists ached, red welts blooming where the handcuffs had bitten too tight, the metals, cold sting lingering like a bad memory. His navy suit, pristine hours ago when he'd stepped off the train, was now creased, a smudge of dirt streaking the lapel from when Officer Travis Holt had shoved him against the squad car. The cells. Fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his face, etching lines deeper into his mid-50s skin. He was a man of poise, a federal appeals court judge who'd faced down mob lawyers and corporate sharks. But here, in this 6-by-8-foot cage, he felt the weight of something heavier than steel bars. It wasn't just the arrest. It was the way Holt's voice had curled around slurs, calling him boy and worse, as if his title, his life, meant nothing. Marcus's fingers twitched, itching to grip his briefcase, still impounded with his phone and wallet, leaving him cut off from the world outside. Across the hall, Officer Holt leaned against a desk, his buzz-cut head gleaming under the precincts, lights a smirk playing on his lips as he recounted the arrest to Officer Greg Vance. Holt was broad, pushing 40, with a boxer's build and eyes that glinted with petty cruelty. Vance, younger, wiry, with a blonde mustache that looked like it belonged on a rookie trying too hard, nodded eagerly, tossing in his own jab about Marcus's fancy suit. They'd heard him say Chief Justice when they'd slapped on the cuffs, but to them it was a joke, a lie spun by a black man reaching too high. "He's probably a janitor with delusions," Holt snorted, flipping through Marcus's ID like it was a comic book. Vance laughed, mimicking Marcus's deep, measured voice, turning dignity into a punchline. Their words echoed down the corridor, each one a needle under Marcus's skin, but he kept his jaw tight, eyes fixed on a crack in the concrete floor. He'd learned long ago that silence could be armor, even when it burned. The woman who'd sparked it all, Evelyn Carver, sat in a cushy interview room 2 doors down, her manicured nails tapping on a mahogany table. She was 55, her ash blonde, hair swept into a flawless bun, her cream silk blouse screaming old money. As a real estate heiress who owned half of Atlanta's skyline, she carried herself like the city owed her a beau. When the desk sergeant asked why she'd screamed thief at the station, her lips pursed, eyes narrowing as she leaned forward. "I know his type," she said, voice low but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Always sneaking where they don't belong." Her story hadn't changed. Marcus had eyed her purse, lunged too close, and she'd acted on instinct. Never mind that her purse was still zipped tight, her cash and cards untouched. The sergeant scribbled notes, nodding, while Evelyn's gaze drifted to a mirror adjusting a diamond earring. She didn't need evidence. Her word, her whiteness, was enough. Marcus's mind churned, replaying the platform chaos. He'd been checking his watch, mentally drafting his gala speech on judicial reform, when Evelyn's scream had ripped through the crowd. "Thief!" she'd howled, her finger stabbing at him like a gavel. He'd frozen, stunned, as Officers Holt and Vance barreled in, their hands on holsters, faces already set in judgment. He'd stayed calm, voice steady as he'd said, "I'm Chief Justice Marcus Langston," expecting the title to cut through the noise. Instead, Holt had sneered, "Yeah, and I'm the governor, boy," while Vance yanked his arms back, cuffs snapping shut. Slurs had flown, thug, lowlife, each word a public lash. As passengers gawked, some whispering, others filming. The viral video Marcus didn't yet know about was already spreading. A grainy clip of his arrest racking up millions of views, splitting the internet between outrage and applause. In the cell, Marcus's thoughts snagged on his career. 30. Years climbing from a public defender in Savannah to one of America's most powerful judges. And now this, a false arrest threatening to smear it all. He could already see the headlines. Judge accused of theft, race card played. His rulings, often on civil rights, had enemies in high places. They'd feast on this. He rubbed his temples, the ache spreading, when footsteps clomped outside. A rookie cop, barely 20, slipped into the hall, glancing nervously at Holt and Vance before tapping on his phone. The kid's name tag read Perry, and his fingers shook as he hit send, leaking the arrest video to a local news blog. Perry had seen the ID, heard Marcus's title, and something, guilt maybe, pushed him to act. The video exploded online. Hashtags like "Ooh, Justice Arrested" trending as activists shared it, their posts calling Holt and Vance bigots, demanding Marcus's release. Marcus heard the precinct's front desk phone ringing off the hook, voices shouting about a judge, and his pulse quickened. Maybe the truth was breaking through. Holt and Vance stormed past, muttering about nosy kids, their smirks gone. The cell door clanked open and Perry stepped in, eyes darting. "You're being processed out," he mumbled, avoiding Marcus's gaze. "A friend of yours posted bail." Marcus stood, smoothing his suit, hope flickering. He'd called no one. His phone was gone, but he knew his network. Someone had seen the video, acted fast. As Perry led him to booking, Marcus caught Holt's glare, the officer's knuckles white around a coffee mug. "You're not out of this," Holt hissed, but Marcus kept walking, head high, feeling the first stirrings of control. At the precinct's front, Marcus spotted Calvin Reed, a wiry lawyer he'd mentored back in law school, now a partner at a downtown firm. Calvin's tie was loose, his face tight with worry, but he grinned when he saw Marcus. "Saw the video," he said, clapping Marcus's shoulder. "Whole city's losing it. You're free, man." Marcus exhaled, the cell's stink fading as he stepped into the humid Atlanta night. Calvin handed him a burner phone, saying, "Your stuff's still evidence, but this'll do." Marcus nodded, already planning to call his clerk, get ahead of the press. The viral clip, Calvin said, was splitting opinions. Half saw Marcus as a victim, half bought Evelyn's story, calling him a grifter in a suit. Marcus's jaw tightened. Public doubt stung worse than cuffs. They hit the sidewalk, Calvin's sedan idling nearby, when a courier in a cheap blazer jogged up, thrusting an envelope at Marcus. "Mr. Langston, you've been served," the kid said, then bolted. Marcus tore it open, scanning the pages under a streetlight. His stomach dropped. Evelyn Carver was suing him for defamation, claiming his Chief Justice. Claim during the arrest was a lie meant to incite racial tension and ruin her reputation. The suit demanded $5 million, enough to drain his savings, maybe force him to sell his house. Calvin cursed, grabbing the papers. "She's playing dirty," he said, "wants to bury you in court." Marcus stood frozen, the burner phone heavy in his pocket. Freedom had felt like a win, a crack of light after the cell's gloom, but this lawsuit was a sledgehammer. Evelyn wasn't just doubling down. She was weaponizing her wealth, betting his title was a bluff. The complaint leaned hard on stereotypes. How could a black man hold such a role without cheating? And Marcus saw the trap. If he fought, every deposition would drag his name through the mud, painting him as the aggressor. If he settled, he'd look guilty, his legacy tarnished. He glanced at Calvin, who was already dialing his firm, muttering about countersuits. But Marcus's mind drifted to the gala tomorrow. He had to speak, had to show he wasn't broken. But the lawsuit's shadow loomed, a noose tightening with every step. Holt and Vance, back at the precinct, watched the news on a corner TV, the anchor replaying the viral clip. Their suspension notices had come through, desk duty pending review, but Holt wasn't sweating. He'd seen Evelyn's type before. She'd push this fight and he'd ride her coattails. Vance, twitchy, kept refreshing his phone, seeing Darton Justice Arrested climb. They didn't know Marcus's next move, but Holt had a buddy in a group called the Sons of Liberty, a pack of loudmouths who loved a cause. He sent a quick text, nothing traceable, just enough to stir the pot. Let the judge deal with a real crowd, he thought, smirking again. Marcus climbed into Calvin's car, the city's neon lights smearing past as they headed to his hotel. He didn't know about Holt's text or that Perry's leak had lit a fuse bigger than freedom. Social media was a wildfire now, splitting Atlanta into camps. Those who saw his cuffs as proof of systemic rot, and those who saw Evelyn's tears and believed a black man had conned his way to power. The lawsuit wasn't just a legal jab. It was Evelyn's first counterattack, a signal she'd rather burn her fortune than let Marcus walk away clean. He stared out the window, the burner phone buzzing with texts from his clerk, his sister, his allies, all asking if he was okay. He wasn't, not really, but he'd fought worse odds before. The gala speech, he told himself, would be his answer, a chance to reclaim his voice. But as Calvin pulled into the hotel lot, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the cuffs were just the start, and whatever came next would hit harder, cut deeper, than he could imagine. Marcus Langston pushed through the revolving doors of the Grand Magnolia Hotel, the Atlanta skyline glittering beyond the lobby's crystal chandeliers. His suit, still wrinkled from the precinct, felt like a lie against the marble floors, and the defamation lawsuit burned in his pocket, $5 million of venom penned by Evelyn Carver. It was 10 at night, the air heavy with 90-degree heat trapped indoors, and his temples throbbed from 16 hours of chaos. Arrest, cuffs, release, and now this legal noose. He'd dodged calls from his clerk, his sister, even a nosy reporter, needing silence to prep his gala speech for tomorrow, a chance to reclaim his name as Chief Justice. The elevator dinged, carrying him to the 12th floor, where his suite waited, a sanctuary of crisp linens and city views. But as he swiped his keycard, his phone buzzed. A text from Calvin Reed, his lawyer friend. "That video's at 20 million views," Calvin wrote. "You're a hero to some, a fraud to others. Stay sharp." Marcus exhaled, rubbing his neck, unaware. The internet was birthing a monster. Online, the viral clip of his arrest had split the world like a fault line. Activists shared it with fury, calling officers Travis Holt and Greg Vance symbols of a rotten system, their slurs echoing in every retweet. But another tide was rising, darker, fed by blogs with names like Patriot Pulse and Liberty Hammer. A group called the Sons of Liberty, a loose pack of gun-toting, flag-waving zealots, latched onto Evelyn's story, branding Marcus a conman in a judge's robe. Their forums buzzed with bile. "He's no justice, just a thief with a fake title." One post ranted, racking up thousands of likes. Holt and Vance, now suspended and holed up in a dive bar across town, scrolled these threads, their beers sweating on the counter. Holt's thick fingers tapped a burner phone, dropping crumbs to a son's contact named Razor. "Let the boys have fun," he texted, grinning as Vance nodded, his blonde mustache twitching. They weren't done with Marcus, not by a long shot. Marcus sank into his suite's armchair, the city's lights a blur through floor-to-ceiling windows. His briefcase lay open, speech notes scattered, lines about equal justice, penned for the Georgia Bar Association's gala. He'd planned to talk, reform to challenge mass incarceration, but now every word felt like a plea for himself. The lawsuit's weight pressed harder than the cuffs had. Evelyn wasn't just after money, she was betting his career would crack under scrutiny. His fingers grazed the burner phone Calvin had given him, its screen flashing with X posts. A hashtag. A fraud judge was climbing, tied to memes of Marcus in cuffs, his face photoshopped onto thieves from old movies. He shut it off, heart pounding, and stood to pour a glass of water, the faucet's hum drowning out the lobby's faint chaos below. Downstairs, Atlanta was simmering. The viral video had drawn crowds to Peachtree Station, some holding signs, "Free." Marcus Justice Now, others chanting Evelyn's name, convinced she'd been wronged. News vans circled, anchors milking the split for ratings. On X, the Sons of Liberty posted a manifesto, calling Marcus a danger to order, their words laced with slurs that made moderators flinch. Razor, a lanky ex-con with a shaved head and a ISI Confederate tattoo, rallied his crew in a Roswell warehouse 30 miles north. They'd seen Holt's nudge, knew the judge was at the Magnolia. "He's got to learn," Razor growled, loading spray cans and bats into a van. By midnight, their tires screeched toward downtown, masks ready, hate burning hotter than the Georgia asphalt. Marcus, oblivious, paced his suite, tweaking his speech. He scratched out a line about hope, replacing it with a jab at systemic rot. The gala was his stage. 500 lawyers, judges, maybe a senator. If he nailed it, the lawsuit might lose steam. If he faltered, Evelyn's narrative would bury him. He glanced at the clock. 1 in the morning. Sleep tugged, but his mind raced, replaying Holt's boy, Vance's smirk, Evelyn's icy stare. He stepped to the window, the city quiet now, and felt a flicker of resolve. Tomorrow he'd fight. He grabbed his coat, needing air, and headed for the lobby, thinking a walk might clear his head. The elevator hummed, dropping him to the street, where the night felt alive, electric. He crossed Peachtree Avenue, the hotel's glow fading behind him, and turned into a narrow alley, a shortcut to a 24-hour diner he liked. His shoes clicked on wet pavement, the air smelling of rain and garbage when a shadow moved. Then another, 4 figures masked in black, materialized, their boots heavy, eyes glinting through slits. Marcus froze, instinct screaming, but before he could turn, a bat swung, grazing his shoulder. He stumbled, catching himself on a dumpster as a voice rasped, "Stay out of our city, fraud." Spray paint hissed, red slurs slashing across his rental car's hood. Thug, liar, worse. Marcus's pulse roared, his breath short, but he held still, eyes locked on the leader's mask, memorizing the tattoo. Peeking from a sleeve, a shout broke the spell, a delivery driver hauling crates spotting the scene. "Hey, back off," the driver yelled, phone raised, and the thugs bolted, vanishing into the dark. Marcus stood, shoulder throbbing, staring at his defaced car, the eye paint still wet, dripping like blood. He thanked the driver, voice steady, and limped back to the hotel, the diner forgotten. The lobby was empty, the night clerk half asleep, and Marcus rode the elevator alone, adrenaline fading to dread. He'd survived, hadn't he? The speech was still his weapon, the gala his chance. He unlocked his suite, expecting refuge, and stopped cold. His room was a wreck, pillows slashed, desk overturned, papers shredded. On the mirror, scrawled in marker, "Quit or bleed." Marcus's knees buckled, the note's threat louder than the alley's bat. He sank to the floor, glass crunching under him, and saw the trap tightening. The lawsuit was bad, but this was war. Organized, personal, fueled by the same hate that had cuffed him. Holt and Vance, he guessed, weren't far from this. Their suspension hadn't dulled their spite. The Sons of Liberty, whoever they were, had marked him, and the gala loomed like a gauntlet. He grabbed the burner phone, texting Calvin, "Need security tomorrow." His hands shook, but his mind sharpened, piecing it together. Someone was orchestrating this, pulling strings he couldn't yet see. Evelyn? The cops? Both? He stood, brushing, glass off his pants, and vowed to fight, but the mirror's words burned. Quit or bleed. The speech felt distant now, a dream from another life. Marcus checked the locks, propped a chair against the door, and sat, staring at the city's pulse. Beyond his shattered window, the alley had been a warning, the room a promise. He thought release was a win, that truth would shield him, but truth was a spark, and Atlanta was dry tinder. His title, his fight, had painted a target, and running wasn't an option. He clutched his notes, the speech's lines blurring, and wondered who'd strike next, how much harder they'd hit. The night stretched heavy, and Marcus waited, knowing dawn would bring no mercy. Comment number 1 if you're raging at this mob's hate. Hit like to stand with justice, and subscribe for the next twist in this fight, because the truth's just starting to burn. What's waiting for Marcus at the gala, and who's pulling the strings to break him? Marcus Langston stood in his trashed hotel suite at the Grand Magnolia, glass shards glinting under the dawn's first light. The words "quit" or "bleed" still scrawled across the mirror in jagged black marker. His shoulder ached from the alley bats, graze, a dull pulse under his wrinkled suit jacket, and the defamation lawsuit's $5 million shadow clung like damp rot. The Sons of Liberty's attack, spray-painted slurs on his car, his room gutted, had turned Atlanta into a battlefield, and the gala speech tonight felt like his last stand. At 55, he'd faced courtroom wars as Chief Justice, but this was raw, personal, a hate that didn't care about gavels. His burner phone buzzed, Calvin Reed, his lawyer, texting about extra security for the event. Marcus nodded to himself, but the mirror's threat screamed louder. He needed answers, not just guards. By 8 in the morning, Marcus sat in a cramped coffee shop 2 blocks from the hotel, the air thick with espresso and burnt toast, his tie loosened to blend in. Across from him was Lena Brooks, a private investigator he'd called after the alley ambush, recommended by a clerk who swore she was the best. Lena was 40, lean, with cropped black hair and a scar above her left eyebrow that twitched when she smirked. Her leather jacket creaked as she slid a manila folder across the table, her voice low-clipped. "Found something on your cops," she said, tapping the folder. Marcus opened it, eyes scanning photos of Officer Travis Holt at a dive bar, meeting a man with a Sons of Liberty tattoo, Razor, the alley thug's leader. A burner phone's call log linked Holt to Razor's number, time-stamped hours before the car vandalism. Marcus's pulse quickened. This was proof, a thread tying Holt to the mob. Lena leaned back, sipping black coffee, her gaze steady but unreadable. "Holt's dirty," she said. "Vance too, probably. I can dig deeper, but it'll cost." Marcus nodded, sliding her a cash envelope under the table. $5,000 scraped from his personal account, the lawsuit already squeezing him dry. He trusted her, or wanted to. Her resume boasted cracking corporate fraud, and she'd asked no questions about his title, just the job. "You get me more," he said, voice firm, "and I'll take it to the DA." Lena pocketed the cash, scar twitching again, and left with a nod, promising a full report by noon. Marcus felt a spark of control, the first since the train station cuffs. If he could nail Holt, the Sons might scatter, and Evelyn Carver's lawsuit might falter under the truth's weight. He spent the morning in a borrowed office at Calvin's firm, rewriting his gala speech, the words sharper now, fueled by the alley's sting and the room's wreckage. By 2, Lena texted, "Got the goods, meet me at the DA's office, 4 sharp." Marcus grabbed the folder, its photos burning in his mind, and took a cab to the Fulton County Courthouse, a grey slab of stone under a 92-degree sun. Inside, the DA, a balding man named Roger Tate, met him in a corner office, all oak and ego. Tate skimmed the photos, eyebrows rising at the call log, and promised a warrant for Holt by sundown. Marcus exhaled, shaking Tate's hand, feeling the tide turn. Holt in cuffs would shift the narrative, prove the arrest was a setup, maybe scare Evelyn off her legal warpath. The gala was at 7, hosted at the Regency Ballroom, a gilded palace of crystal and velvet 5 miles from the hotel. Marcus arrived early. His new suit, rushed from a tailor Calvin knew, crisp navy, a shield against yesterday's dirt. Security flanked him. 2 ex-cops Calvin had vetted, their eyes scanning the crowd of 500, lawyers in tuxes, judges sipping bourbon, a senator nodding from the bar. The ballroom hummed, chandeliers casting gold across mahogany tables, the air cool at 70 degrees despite the evening's heat. Marcus took the stage at 8, gripping the podium, his speech notes steady in hand. He didn't mention the arrest, not yet. Instead, he spoke of justice's fragility, of systems that bent toward power, not truth. His voice rolled deep, steady, weaving stories of cases he'd won, kids freed from wrongful convictions, families saved from eviction. The room leaned in, faces rapt, and when he said, "We rebuild justice together," they rose, clapping, a wave of sound that drowned the lawsuit's echo. He stepped off stage, sweat beading under his collar, and shook hands with the senator, who whispered, "You've got my ear, Judge." Marcus smiled, the ovation still ringing, and thought he'd done it. Flipped the script, turned victim into victor. His phone buzzed. Calvin outside saying the DA had Holt in custody, nabbed at a gas station with Razor's number still on his burner. Marcus's chest loosened. The pieces were falling into place. He sipped water, nodding to a law professor's praise, and pictured tomorrow's headlines: "Cop linked to mob, judge vindicated." The lawsuit felt smaller, Evelyn's $5 million, a bluff he could call. He excused himself, heading for the exit, ready to crash at a new hotel Calvin had booked, away from the Magnolia's ghosts. Outside, the night was sticky, streetlights buzzing on Peachtree Avenue. Marcus waved off his security, wanting a moment alone, and leaned against his rental car, a new sedan untouched by paint. He didn't see the flicker in the alley across the street. didn't hear the soft click of a lighter. His phone lit up. Lena, texting a thumbs up, saying she'd meet him tomorrow with more dirt. He smiled, thumb hovering to reply when a roar split the air. Flames erupted under his car, a firebomb's bloom swallowing the hood in orange and black. Marcus dove back, hitting pavement, his palms scraping as glass shattered, heat singeing. His face. Screams echoed, gala guests spilling out, phones raised, filming the blaze. He crawled clear, lungs burning, the car a skeleton in 60 seconds flat. Sirens wailed, fire trucks screaming in. But Marcus's eyes locked on the crowd, searching for masks, for Razor's tattoo. Nothing. Just chaos. Faces blurred in panic. His security rushed over, pulling him to safety, but his mind spun. The Suns hadn't quit. Holt's arrest hadn't stopped them. He stumbled to Calvin's car, parked nearby, and checked his phone, X already flooding with clips of the fire, hashtags shifting. Your fraud judge now joined by Gower Dangerous Langston. A new video hit. His gala speech sliced and diced, words twisted to sound like a rant against white America. We rebuild justice, he'd said, but the edit made it burn their justice down, looped with fire footage, painting him as a radical torching his own car. Marcus's throat tightened, the ovation's warmth gone. The speech, his shield, was now a weapon, flipped by someone with skill, with cash. He dialed Lena, got voicemail, and cursed under his breath. Calvin, beside him, scrolled the fake video, its views climbing past 1 million. This ain't random, Calvin muttered, and Marcus nodded, the truth sinking in. Lena's scar, her too-quick find, had she played him? He remembered her smirk, the cash vanishing into her jacket, and dread coiled tight. The DA's promise, Holt's cuffs, felt hollow now, a setup for this louder blow. His car smoldered, a crowd still filming, and Marcus saw Evelyn's hand, not in the flames but in the edit, the leak, the betrayal. He told Calvin to drive anywhere but here and clutched the folder, its photos useless now. The gala had been his peak, 500 voices cheering his name, but the firebomb and fake video were a deeper cut, stripping his words, his truth. The Suns knew his moves. Maybe Lena had fed them, and Evelyn's wealth was a bottomless well, buying hacks, buying lies. His shoulder throbbed, the alley's batter memory dwarfed by this inferno. He'd thought Holt's arrest was checkmate, but the board had flipped, and the game was hers. As Calvin sped toward a safe house, Marcus stared at the city's blur, knowing the gala's echo wouldn't save him, and whatever came next would strike where he bled most. Marcus Langston's shoes echoed on the marble steps of the Fulton County Courthouse, each click a defiance against the firebomb's heat still seared into his memory. It was 10 in the morning, 48 hours since his car had burned outside. The Regency Ballroom, the gala's cheers now drowned by a viral video twisting his speech into a slur against white America. His new suit, charcoal gray, hung sharp but heavy, the weight of Evelyn Carver's $5 million defamation lawsuit pressing harder than ever. Lena Brooks's betrayal, her leak to the Sons of Liberty, had turned his triumph sour, the fire a public scar branding him dangerous. At 55, as Chief Justice, he'd faced crooked lawyers and biased juries, but this was a machine, grinding his name, his legacy, into dust. He gripped a folder, Lena's photos of Officer Travis, Holt's burner phone linking him to the mob, and pushed through the courthouse doors, the 94-degree Atlanta sun at his back. Today he'd forced the DA to act, to cuff Holt for real, to break the Sun's spine. Inside, the air was cool, 70 degrees, but the DA's office felt like a trap, all polished wood and power. Roger Tate, the district attorney, sat behind, a desk cluttered with legal pads, his bald head gleaming under fluorescent lights, his tie a smug red knot. Marcus stood tall, voice steady, laying out the folder's contents. Holt meeting Razor, the Sun's thug, call logs tying him to the alley attack, the car vandalism, maybe the firebomb. Tate's eyes flicked over the photos, his fingers tapping, but his smile was thin, oily, like he was humoring a child. "We're moving on, Holt, Judge," he said, "but evidence takes time, you know that." Marcus leaned forward, heat rising in his chest. "Time. My car's ash. My speech is a lie online. And You're sitting on proof. Tate nodded, promising a warrant by tomorrow, but his gaze darted to a framed photo, him shaking hands with a woman, Evelyn Carver, at a fundraiser. Marcus missed it, too focused, and left with a handshake, thinking Holt's arrest was hours away. He stepped into the courthouse lobby, the hum of clerks and cops fading as hope flickered. Holt in cuffs would shift the narrative, prove the train station arrest was a racist setup, maybe loosen Evelyn's lawsuit grip. His burner phone buzzed. Calvin Reed, his lawyer, saying the gala video's views had hit 30 million, splitting Atlanta deeper. Some called Marcus a hero, others a fraud, and the Sons of Liberty's ex-posts screamed for his head, slurs piling up like kindling. He texted Calvin to prep a press statement, feeling the tide turn. By noon, news broke. Holt arrested at a diner. Off Interstate 85, caught with Razor's number still on his burner, smirking as cuffs snapped on. Marcus, in a cab back to the hotel, watched the clip on his phone. Holt's broad frame slumped in a squad car. He exhaled, the first real breath in days, and pictured the headlines. Cop tied to mob, judge cleared. Evelyn's suit, the Sons. Threats seemed smaller, almost brittle. He reached the Grand Magnolia, now under tight security after the room trashing, and prepped for a quiet night, rewriting his speech notes for a bar association lunch tomorrow. The firebomb had shaken him. Lena's double-cross worse, but Holt's arrest felt like a pivot, a chance to stand taller. He ordered coffee, the hotel's Wi-Fi slow but steady, and checked ex-activists cheering, Chuck a justice arrested trending again. His sister Tanya called, voice trembling but proud, saying she'd fly in to support him. Marcus smiled, promising her a safe visit, and hung up, the burner's battery low but his spirit climbing. He'd won this round, hadn't he? The DA was moving, the truth breaking through. He leaned back, the suite's calm a brief refuge, unaware the machine was already grinding again. Across town, Roger Tate sat in his office, shades drawn, on a call with Evelyn Carver. Her voice crackled through, cold as steel, promising funds for his re-election if he handled the judge. Tate, tied to her real estate empire through backroom deals, knew Holt's arrest was a spark Marcus would fan. He hung up, dialed a deputy, and whispered orders. By 3, a new file landed on Tate's desk. Marcus's leak of the burner phone data to a blogger tagged as obstructing justice. Tate smirked, signing a warrant, his pen a quiet blade. Evelyn wanted Marcus buried, not just sued, and Tate owed her too much to balk. He pictured her penthouse, her grip on Atlanta's land, and nodded to himself, the photo of their handshake glaring from its frame. At 4, Marcus was at a tailor's, fixing a torn cuff, when his phone buzzed. Calvin, urgent. Turn on the news, he said. Marcus found a TV in the shop, CNN blaring, Chief Justice Langston charged with obstructing justice. His face flashed, gala footage mixed with the firebomb's glow, the anchor saying he'd leaked evidence to dodge accountability. Marcus's knees buckled, the tailor catching his arm. Tate had flipped the script, charging him for exposing Holt, a move so bold it screamed corruption. Calvin texted, "Get to court, now." Marcus ran, hailing a cab, the city's heat choking, his mind racing. He'd pushed Tate, trusted him, and now the system was biting back, sharper than the sun's bats. The arraignment was at 6, a packed courtroom smelling of wax and fear. The judge, a grey-haired crony Tate knew well. Marcus stood, suit creased again, as the charge was read. Obstructing justice, a felony, tied to his blog leak. Calvin argued, voice fierce, but the judge's eyes were stone, setting bail at $1 million, a sum Marcus couldn't touch with the lawsuit draining him. The gavel cracked, and deputies grabbed his arms, no cuffs this time, but their grip was iron, pulling him to a van for Fulton County Jail. He looked back at Calvin, shouting about appeals, but the doors slammed, the van's engine roaring. He'd thought Holt's arrest was justice, a shield, but Tate had turned it into a trap, and Marcus was caged again, the gala's cheers a distant. Fulton County Jail loomed, a concrete maze under buzzing lights, the air sour with bleach and despair. Marcus was processed, fingerprints, mugshot, his title meaningless to the guards, who called him troublemaker with a sneer. In a holding block, 50 men crammed in. He sat alone, the lawsuit's shadow now joined by a felony charge, his career teetering. He pictured Tanya, safe for now, and clung to that, thinking Calvin would pull strings, get him out by morning. The cell door clanged, and 4 inmates swaggered in, eyes glinting, one flashing a Sons of Liberty tattoo, a skull with crossed rifles. Marcus tensed, no guards in sight, and stood, fists loose but ready. The leader, a hulking man with a shaved head, grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Heard you're a judge," he rasped, "but you look like meat to me." Marcus said nothing, eyes locked, but the others circled, one spitting a slur that echoed Holt's boy. They rushed him, no warning, fists slamming his ribs, a boot catching his. "Sight!" He swung back, landing a punch, but a knee cracked his chest, snapping bone. Pain exploded, air gone, and he hit the floor, curling tight as kicks rained down. Blood pooled, warm on concrete, his vision blurring. A guard's whistle finally screamed, boots scattering, but the damage was done. 3 ribs cracked, his left eye swelling shut. Marcus lay there, gasping, the cell's cold biting his skin, the sun's laughter fading down the hall. The guard hauled him to medical, muttering about fights, no questions asked. A nurse taped his ribs, her hands quick, avoiding his gaze, and sent him back to a solo cell, the door locking with a thud. He sat, pain spiking with every breath, and saw the truth. Tate's charge, the rigged bail, this beating, all tied to Evelyn, to Holt, to a city that wouldn't let him rise. He'd thought the DA was his ally. Holt's cuffs his win, but the system had teeth and they'd torn deeper than the firebomb, leaving him broken, caged and alone, with no way out but through. Comment number 1, if you're stunned by this. Betrayal. Hit like to demand truth and subscribe to see Marcus fight back, because the system's claws are tightening. Can he find an ally to break this trap, or is the next blow already falling? Marcus Langston slumped on a thin jail cot in Fulton County's solitary cell, his ribs screaming with every shallow breath, the pain a jagged rhythm under the nurse's hasty tape. His left eye was a swollen slit, purpled from the Sons of Liberty, inmates' boots, their slurs, uppity judge, black trash, still echoing louder than the guard's whistle that had stopped the beating. The cell's concrete walls, scrawled with faded curses, closed in, the air sour with bleach and rust at 70 degrees, a stark contrast to Atlanta's 95-degree noon outside. At 55, as Chief Justice, he'd faced death threats and courtroom stares, but this, cuffed at a train station, sued for $5 million, firebombed, framed for obstructing justice, now broken in a cage, was a spiral he couldn't outsmart. Evelyn Carver's shadow, woven through Officer Travis Holt, DA Roger Tate and the Sun's fists, loomed larger than ever, and Marcus's title felt like a taunt, useless against hate this raw. He clutched a smuggled pencil, its tip dulled from scratching pleas on a napkin. "Calvin, get me out." His lawyer was working appeals, but the $1 million bail set by Tate's crony judge was a wall Marcus couldn't climb, not with Evelyn's lawsuit draining his accounts. The Sun's attack in the block, their tattooed leader grinning, proved the jail wasn't safe. Every guard's glance, every inmate's whisper carried a threat. Marcus's mind churned, replaying D.A. Tate's oily promise, Holt's arrest, the Gala's cheers, all flipped into this felony charge for leaking proof of Holt's mob ties. He'd pushed too hard, trusted the system he'd sworn to fix, and now his ribs paid the price, each crack a reminder of betrayal. Guard banged the door, tossing in a burner phone. No explanation. Marcus grabbed it, heart lurching. Calvin's doing, maybe, or a clerk's risky favor. He dialed Sam Carter, a journalist he'd met years ago at a civil rights panel, a bulldog with a blog that reached millions. Sam answered on the second ring, voice gravelly but warm, and Marcus spilled it all. The train station, Evelyn's lies, Holt's burner, Tate's frame, the firebomb, the beating. Sam listened, scribbling, and promised an expose by morning, tying Tate to Evelyn's real estate empire through campaign funds. "Hang tight, Judge," Sam said. "This'll crack the cage open." Marcus hung up, the phone's weight a lifeline, his first since the Gala's ovation. If Sam delivered, public pressure could force Tate's hand, maybe spring him before the sun struck again. By dawn, Sam's blog post hit. A 5,000-word torch titled Judge Betrayed. Atlanta's elite rig justice. It named Tate's donors, Evelyn's land deals, Holt's mob calls, and Marcus's ordeal, backed by leaked emails Sam had dug up. X erupted, a Free Langston trending as activists shared it, protests swelling outside the courthouse, signs demanding Tate's resignation. News vans circled, anchors quoting Sam's line, "A black judge dares truth, and the system breaks him." Marcus, cut off in solitary, didn't see it, but guards muttered, their sneers softening, one slipping him an extra blanket. At 10, Calvin called the burner, smuggled by a sympathetic warden, saying the governor was watching, Tate sweating. By noon, a judge, pressured by the uproar, slashed Marcus's bail to $10,000, a sum Calvin covered in cash. Marcus walked out at 2, ribs taped tight, eye still shut, but free, the jail's stink fading under Atlanta's humid sky. He met Calvin at a diner off Peachtree, the air greasy with fries, 72 degrees inside despite the heat wave. Calvin slid him a new suit, black, tailored, and a real phone, his impounded one still locked in evidence. "You're a folk hero," Calvin said, showing ex-posts praising Marcus's fight. He nodded, pain flaring but hope stirred. The expose had worked. Tate was cornered, Holt jailed, Evelyn's lawsuit wobbling. He'd speak at a press conference tonight, Calvin said, to millions watching live. Marcus sipped coffee, rewriting. His words in his head. Not just reform now, but a call to dismantle Tate's machine, to burn out the rot. He pictured his sister Tanya, safe in Savannah, cheering him on, and felt the gala's fire reignite, his voice ready to roar. The press conference was at 6, set in a plaza by the state capitol, a stone square framed by oaks and news trucks. 5,000 packed it, activists, lawyers, families, phones raised, the air buzzing at 88 degrees as dusk settled. Marcus took the mic, ribs aching but stance firm, his suit crisp against the crowd's sweat-soaked shirts. He spoke, of justice, not as a dream but a fight, naming Tate's betrayal, Holt's hate, the son's violence. He didn't mention Evelyn, not yet. She was too slippery, but his words landed, the crowd roaring, chanting Langston lives. Cameras flashed, streaming to 30 million online, and Marcus felt it. Control, the narrative his again. He stepped, down shaking hands, a preacher calling him blessed and thought he'd turned the tide, broken the cage for good. He stayed late, signing autographs, the plaza thinning by 9. Calvin drove him to a new hotel, the Starlight Inn, its neon sign flickering across a quiet lot. Marcus crashed on the bed, ribs throbbing, and checked his phone. Sam's post now at 50 million views, the governor tweeting support. He smiled, texting Tanya good night, feeling safe, whole, until a notification pinged. An ex-post, anonymous but viral, linked to his private emails, hacked and spilled raw. Messages from 20 years back, when he was a young judge, showed him headhunting a deal, letting a racist cop skate to secure a bigger case. The context was gone, the deal defensible then, but the leak twisted it, branding him a sellout, a hypocrite who'd traded black lives for power. Marcus's chest seized, the phone slipping from his hand. The plaza's cheers faded, replaced by X's venom. Langston lies trending, activists who'd marched now calling him traitor. He dialed Sam, got nothing. Then Calvin, who cursed, saying, "It's spreading like wildfire." Marcus paced, the Starlight's thin walls closing in when his phone rang. Tanya screaming. Protesters had stormed her Savannah home, not activists but sons of liberty, masked and raging, believing Marcus hid. There. They'd smashed windows, torched her porch, spray-painted slurs, fraud, snake across her walls. Tanya was safe at a neighbor's, but her voice broke, asking why. Marcus, why? He had no answer, only rage, the leak's timing too sharp, too cruel. He sat, head in hands, ribs pulsing like a drum. Holt, out on bail since yesterday, had to be behind this. His mob ties ran deep, and the hack smelled of his spite. Marcus pictured him grinning, free while Marcus bled. The expose had freed him, the press conference crowned him. But this leak was a guillotine, cutting his past to shred his future. Tanya's home, her safety, was the real blow, worse than jail's fists, deeper than the firebomb's heat. He'd trusted Sam, leaned on Calvin, but someone, Holt, Evelyn, a ghost, knew his weaknesses, his compromises, and weaponized them. The plaza's roar was a lie now, his folk hero crown ash, and Marcus saw Evelyn's game. Let him rise, then gut. Him where it hurt most. He stood grabbing his suit jacket, the starlight's neon flickering outside. Tanya's call replayed, her fear a blade in his gut. The hacked emails weren't random, they were surgical, timed to flip his victory into shame. Holt's bail, Tate's stall, the sun's reach, it all connected, a web he couldn't map yet. He texted Calvin, "Find the hacker." He'd speak again, call out the leak as a lie, but the crowd's trust was cracked, and Tanya's trashed home was a warning. Family wasn't off limits. Marcus locked the door, ribs aching, and stared at the city's glow, knowing freedom was a trap, and the next hit would aim for his heart, not his bones. Marcus Langston stood in the Starlight Inn's dim bathroom, splashing cold water on his face, the mirror reflecting a man frayed but unbowed. His ribs, taped tight from the jail beating, ached under a fresh white shirt, each breath a reminder of the Sons of Liberty's fists. At 55, as Chief Justice, he'd faced worse: Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit, a firebombed car, a rigged felony charge, but the hacked emails exposing a 20-year-old compromise had gutted him. They'd painted him a hypocrite, a black judge who'd once let a racist cop walk, and the Sons had torched his sister Tanya's Savannah home, slurs burned into her walls, believing he hid there. Atlanta's 96-degree morning pressed against the window, but Marcus's blood ran hotter, fueled by Tanya's trembling voice, the plaza's fading cheers, and a city split by his name. Tonight he'd fight back, a rally to clear his truth, to bury the lies. He'd spent the day with Calvin Reed, his lawyer, in a borrowed office downtown, the air stale at 70 degrees, papers strewn across a desk. Calvin, tie loose, scrolled X on his laptop, showing Marcus the damage. Langston lies at 40 million views. Activists who'd marched for him now split, some calling him a sellout, but others, millions strong, still posted Trona Free Langston, sharing Sam Carter's expose on DA Roger Tate's ties to Evelyn's empire. Marcus seized it, calling organizers, clergy, even a senator he'd met at the gala. By noon they'd booked Centennial Park, a sprawling green heart in Atlanta, for a 7 o'clock rally. "We'll tell your story," Calvin said, drafting flyers. The email was a deal, not a betrayal. "You saved 10 kids' cases by letting that cop go." Marcus nodded, rewriting his speech, words sharp as glass, vowing to expose Tate, Holt, the Sons, and the hate chaining them all. The park buzzed by 6, 10,000 strong, families, students, lawyers, faces black, white, brown, holding signs. "Truth for Langston, end the lies." Food trucks lined the edges, grilling burgers, the air thick with grease and 90-degree dusk. News drones hummed overhead, streaming to 50 million online, while cops circled uneasy, their hands off holsters since Holt's arrest. Marcus arrived at 6:30, a new black suit masking his taped ribs, Calvin at his side, 2 guards trailing, ex-Marines hired after the firebomb. The stage was simple, a wooden platform with a mic backed by oaks and a city skyline twinkling gold. Marcus paced backstage, speech notes in hand, Tanya's call replaying. She was safe, urging him to fight, but her fear lingered, a weight, heavier than Evelyn's lawsuit. At 7, he took the stage, the crowd's roar shaking his bones, a tide of hands raised, phones flashing. He gripped the mic, voice deep, steady, and began, not with the emails but the train station, cuffs. Biting as Holt sneered, "Boy." He traced the spiral. Evelyn's theft lie, the alley bats, the fire's heat, Tate's felony frame, the jail's boots. Then the hack, twisting his past, a deal he'd made at 30, sacrificing 1 case to save 10, context stripped to wound. "Him? I'm no traitor," he said, eyes sweeping the sea of faces. "I fought for you, for justice, and Tate's machine wants me silent." He named the DA's deals, Evelyn's cash, Holt's mob, and the Sons' hate, each word a hammer, the crowd erupting, chanting, "No more lies." A senator, grey-haired and sharp, joined him, pledging a federal probe, his arm around Marcus, cameras zooming. Marcus stepped back, heart pounding, the park's energy a pulse. 10,000 voices, one truth, his truth reclaimed. He lingered, shaking hands, signing posters, the senator whispering, "We'll get Tate." By 9, the crowd thinned. Marcus, glowing, thinking he'd done it, flipped the hack, buried the Suns, loosened Evelyn's grip. Calvin grinned, saying X was exploding. Langston lives trending past 60 million. Marcus nodded, ribs easing, picturing Tanya smiling, his court. Bench waiting. He headed for Calvin's car, parked near a fountain, guards close, when a rumble shook the earth. A blast tore through the park's edge, a trash can erupting in flame and shrapnel, the shockwave knocking Marcus to his knees. Screams split the air, smoke choking as 2 aides, young clerks who'd helped plan the rally, lay still, blood pooling on grass, their eyes empty. Marcus crawled, ears ringing, his guards pulling him clear, but the crowd stampeded, phones filming, drones crashing, sirens wailed, fire trucks screaming in, the park a haze of ash and panic. Marcus stood, shaking, ribs stabbing, staring at the aides' bodies, their names, Keisha, Jamal, burning in his mind. Medics rushed, too late, and cops swarmed, one glancing at Marcus, muttering trouble. His phone lit up. Ex-posts blaming him, calling the rally a spark for chaos, just dangerous Langston reborn. News anchors, live from the scene, spun it fast. Langston's fiery speech incites violence, looping his words, fight, burnout, rot, with the blast's glow. Marcus's throat closed, the senator's pledge gone, his aide texting apologies, backing off. Calvin grabbed him, shouting, "We gotta move." But Marcus froze, seeing Holt's smirk, Evelyn's shadow, and a new hand, Officer Greg Vance, Holt's partner, free and vengeful, leading the Suns since Holt's cuffs. Vance, wiry and blonde-mustached, had watched the rally from a bar, his suspension fueling hate, razor at his side. He'd planted the bomb hours earlier, a crude pipe rigged with nails, timed for Marcus's exit, meant to kill but settling for chaos. Vance grinned as X flipped. Marcus's triumph now a noose, race baiter, rioter, slurs flooding like rain. He dodged Holt's spotlight, let Razor take the fall, and now struck where Marcus soared, turning 10,000 cheers into screams. Evelyn's cash, funneled through a shell, had bought the parts. Her rage at Marcus's speech, a match to Vance's fire. They'd planned it loose, hurt him, break him, and the aides' deaths were a bonus, blood on Marcus's name. Marcus stumbled to Calvin's car, the park's oaks black against sirens red, his speech notes lost in the blast. The senator's retreat stung worse than his ribs, the crowd's trust, his lifeline, cracking like glass. Keisha and Jamal, 25, dead for his fight, their faces flashing, guilt heavier than Tanya's trashed home. He'd thought the rally was his gavel, smashing Tate's lies, Holt's mob, Evelyn's suit, but Vance's bomb was a checkmate, flipping hero to villain. Cops eyed him, not as victim but suspect, their radios crackling with his name. Calvin drove, tires screeching, to a safe house, but Marcus's mind spun. Vance, unseen till now, had played him, and Evelyn's reach was a vice, squeezing his city, his people, his soul. He sat in the back seat, blood speckling his cuff, the blast's heat lingering like the firebombs. But worse, lives lost, not just metal. The plaza, the expose, his release, all victories, had led here, to bodies. On grass his name cursed. Tanya was safe, but for how long? The Suns, Vance, Evelyn. They'd hit harder, smarter, and Marcus's speech, his truth, was ash now, scattered by a bomb he hadn't seen coming. He clutched his phone, X's hate scrolling, and knew running wasn't enough. He'd fight, but the park's screams drowned his vow, and the next trap he sensed was already set, waiting to snap. Comment number 1 if you're gutted by this tragedy, hit like to honor the fallen, and subscribe to see justice claw back, because Marcus's fight is bleeding raw. Who's steering this chaos, and what's the next trap closing in? Marcus Langston crouched in a damp basement safe house on Atlanta's west side, the air thick with mold and 70-degree chill, a far cry from the 97-degree chaos outside. His ribs, still taped from the jail beating, throbbed under. A borrowed grey hoodie, the pain a dull echo of the Centennial Park bombing. Keisha and Jamal's blood on the grass, their deaths pinned on his rally. At 55, as Chief Justice, he dodged Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit. A firebombed car, a rigged felony, hacked emails, and a torched family home. But the bomb's toll, 2 aides gone, his name cursed as a race baiter, had driven him underground. The safe house, a crumbling row home lent by a pastor Calvin knew, was a maze of cracked plaster and sagging beams, its single bulb flickering over a folding table where Marcus sat, his burner phone dead, his real one lost. To evidence. He was a fugitive now, hunted by cops who saw him as a riot spark. His senator ally silent, screaming, "Hark's dangerous, Langston." Jada Monroe, his court clerk, sat across from him, her braids pulled tight, her laptop glowing with files she'd smuggled from the federal courthouse. At 30, Jada was sharp, loyal, a law grad who'd clerked for Marcus 3 years, her eyes fierce despite the safe house's gloom. She'd risked her job slipping in tonight, dodging news vans and Sons of Liberty patrols, her backpack stuffed, with printouts, Evelyn's financials, bank transfers to DA Roger Tate, even a shell company tied to the Sun's warehouse. Marcus scanned a ledger, his finger tracing deposits. $50,000 to a front called Liberty Holdings, dated before the alley attack. "This is it," he said, voice hoarse, ribs pinching. "Evelyn's paying for the bats, the bomb, all of it." Jada nodded, typing fast, cross-referencing Tate's campaign to Evelyn's land deals. "If we get this to the FBI," she said, "Tate's done and Evelyn's exposed." Marcus leaned back, the chair creaking, hope flickering like the bulb above. Jada's find was a lifeline, proof Evelyn wasn't just suing him, but bankrolling a war. From Holt's mob calls to Vance's pipe bomb. He pictured the headlines. "Real estate queen funds hate," his name cleared. "Keisha and Jamal's deaths avenged." He'd trusted wrong before. Lena's firebomb setup, Tate's felony frame, but Jada was family, her late dad a judge Marcus had mourned with her. "Let's move," he said, scribbling a contact. An FBI agent he'd met at a conference, clean, as far as he knew. Jada zipped her laptop, promising to courier the files by dawn, her eyes soft but sure. Marcus exhaled, seeing a path. Deliver this, end the hunt, stand tall again. By midnight, Jada was gone, her sneakers silent on the basement. Steps, leaving Marcus with a stale sandwich and a radio crackling news. Langston manhunt intensifies. Rally deaths spark curfew. He turned it off, the safe house's quiet heavier than jail's clang, and lay on a cot, ribs protesting, mind racing. Tanya, his sister, was safe in a Savannah motel, but her trashed home haunted him, slurs burned into her porch. The rallies, raw 10,000 strong, had felt like victory, but Vance's bomb had flipped it, blood outweighing truth. He trusted Jada, but doubt gnawed. Lena's scar, Tate's smirk, every ally a risk now. Sleep wouldn't come, the bulb's hum a taunt, and Marcus stared at the ceiling, willing the FBI drop to break Evelyn's grip. At 6, his burner buzzed. Jada, texting from a burner of her own. "Files sent," she wrote. "Agents meeting me at 8. Marcus stood, ribs stabbing, and paced, the safe house's damp walls closing in. By 10, news hit. FBI raiding Evelyn's downtown office, agents hauling boxes, her penthouse taped off. X lit up. Evelyn exposed trending, posts tying her to Tate, to Holt, to the Sun's cash. Marcus found a TV in the pastor's kitchen, CNN, showing Evelyn's icy glare as she dodged cameras, her lawyer shouting no comment. Calvin called, voice electric. "You did it, Judge. Tate suspended, FBI sniffing Vance." Marcus grinned, the safe house's gloom lifting, picturing his bench, his gavel, his city turning. He texted Tanya, promising a visit soon, feeling the fugitive tag slip. The rally's blood a debt he'd repay with truth. He ate a real meal, eggs, toast, coffee. Jada's drop a shield, the FBI's raid a sword. Calvin sent a car, a beat-up sedan to avoid eyes, and Marcus rode to a new hideout, ribs easing, the city's pulse less hostile. By noon, X shifted. Langston vindicated climbing, activists reposting Sam's exposé, Tanya texting hearts from her motel. Marcus let himself hope, the lawsuit's shadow thinning, Vance's bomb a fading echo. He dodged death, jail, fire, and lies. This raid was his pivot, Evelyn's empire cracking, Tate's machine stalling. He napped, the sedan's hum a lullaby, dreaming of court, of Tanya's laugh, of Keisha and Jamal smiling down. The dream broke at 3. The sedan parked at a new safe house, a garage apartment, 72 degrees, smelling of oil and dust. Marcus ate takeout, Jada's files copied to a USB he'd mail as backup, his burner charging. He flipped on a radio, expecting FBI updates, and froze. A news break. Langston linked to drug ring, safe house raided. His face flashed, a mugshot from jail, spliced with grainy footage. Cops busting a door, bagging white powder. Marcus's heart sank, ribs forgotten. As the anchor said, officers found 10 pounds of cocaine in a West Side basement, tied to fugitive judge. He bolted upright, dialing Jada, getting voicemail. Then Calvin, who cursed, saying it's live, cops are everywhere. Sirens wailed outside, red lights flashing through the apartment's blinds, and Marcus ducked, crawling to a back door. His mind spun. Jada's drop, the FBI raid, all real. But this? He hadn't touched drugs, hadn't seen that basement since dawn. Cops kicked the safe house door, shouting, "Langston, freeze!" And he slipped out, hoodie up, sprinting through an alley, ribs screaming. He hid behind a dumpster, breath ragged, as squad cars roared past, radios crackling his name. The raid. Footage looped in his head. Not Jada's fault, not her style, but someone close. Her boyfriend, Devin, flashed, tall, quiet, at her place last month, eyes dodging Marcus's handshake. Devin, Jada had said, worked odd jobs, tech stuff, cash deals. Marcus pieced it, crouched in filth, the city's heat a vice at 90 degrees. Devin, bribed by Vance, had spiked his food, takeout left in the basement. Marcus's prints on the bag. Vance, free since Holt's fall, had dodged the FBI's net, his sons still loyal, Evelyn's cash a ghost in their hands. The cocaine, planted clean, was a frame to bury Marcus, not just as rioter but dealer, a slur worse than race baiter. He ran, ribs cracking, to a payphone, calling Calvin, whispering, "Find Devin." The line cut, cops closing, and Marcus stumbled. Into shadows, the safe house bust a noose tighter than Tate's felony. Lockup was worse this time, a downtown precinct, 70-degree steel and piss, no solitary to shield him. Guards shoved him in, one with a son's tattoo, skull, rifles, grinning. Wide. Marcus stood tall, ribs afire, expecting fists, but the guard had orders. In a shower block alone, the guard swung a baton, cracking Marcus's skull, blood pooling as he fell, vision fading. Concussed, he gasped, the guard's boot grazing his face, muttering uppity done. Medics came, late, stitching him in a haze, and Marcus woke in a cell, head pounding. The drug charge a life sentence looming. Jada's files useless, Evelyn's shadow laughing. He'd trusted her drop, thought the raid was checkmate, but Devin's spike, Vance's cash, had flipped. The board and Marcus lay broken, the city's hate his only company. No bench, no truth left to save him. Marcus Langston lay on a cot in a Fulton County Jail infirmary, his head pounding like a drum, the baton's crack from the Sons of Liberty Guard still ringing through his skull. His ribs, taped for weeks, ached under a paper-thin gown, and his left eye, bruised from earlier beatings, barely opened, framing a world of grey walls and 70-degree antiseptic chill. At 55, as Chief Justice, he'd survived a false arrest, Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit, a firebombed car, a rigged felony, hacked emails, a bombed rally, and a drug frame. But the concussion, blood pooling as he'd blacked out, had dulled his edge, each thought sluggish like wading through mud. Atlanta's 98-degree noon baked the city outside. But Marcus was trapped, the drug charge a life sentence looming, Evelyn's shadow tying Officer Travis Holt, Greg Vance, D.A. Roger Tate, and the Sons into a noose around his neck. The infirmary's TV flickered, bolted high, a news channel on mute. Marcus squinted, head throbbing, and caught a headline. Cop confesses in Langston case. His breath caught, pain forgotten, as the screen showed Holt, broad and buzz-cut in cuffs, head bowed, a hidden mic catching his voice. Sons planned it all. Ali to bomb with Vance running point. The clip looped, Holt admitting Evelyn's cash fueled the mob Tate's silence bought. Marcus gripped the cot, dizzy but sharp, the confession a flare in his fog. Jada's FBI drop, Evelyn's bank. Ties had sparked raids, but this was gold. Holt cracking under pressure, maybe scared of Vance's bomb. Marcus whispered thanks to nobody, knowing Calvin Reed, his lawyer, would pounce, the drug frame crumbling. By 3, the news spread, X exploded. Chand Holt confesses trending, posts demanding Marcus's release, activists outside the jail chanting, "Free Langston." A guard, not the Sun's thug, unlocked his cell, muttering about paperwork, and by 5 Marcus walked free, ribs stabbing, head spinning, but alive. Calvin met him at the gate, a navy suit in hand, his grin wide. Court tossed the drug charge, he said. Holt's tape killed it. Marcus dressed, the suit loose on his battered frame, and stepped into Atlanta's heat. A crowd of hundreds cheering, signs waving, "Justice lives." He waved, weak but steady, the infirmary's haze lifting, Tanya's texts, "You're back, brother," warming. His chest. He'd beaten the frame, hadn't he? Holt's fall, Jada's proof, felt final, his bench within reach. Calvin drove him to a downtown loft, a donor's spare, 72 degrees, all glass and steel, a fortress after the safe house. Bust. Marcus sank into a couch, painkillers dulling his skull, and watched TV, anchors praising him, hero judge survive system. Crowds rallied, not rioters but supporters, thousands strong, their faces a mirror of the park's 10,000 before. The bomb stole Keisha and Jamal. He ate soup, Tanya calling safe in Savannah, laughing through tears. Calvin planned a presser, saying the lawsuit's fading. Evelyn's dodging cameras, her empire cracked. Marcus nodded, head clearing, picturing court, his gavel, the sons scattered, Vance hunted, Tate done. He slept, the loft's quiet a balm. Dreaming of Tanya's porch rebuilt, his name clean, morning broke. The loft's windows framing a city less hostile, 90 degrees at 8. Marcus showered, ribs protesting, and checked X. Langston vindicated at 60 million views. The drug bust debunked, Holt's clip viral. He felt it. Freedom, not just from cuffs but shame, the hacked emails fading, his rally's blood avenged. Calvin texted, "DOJ's calling, want you back." Marcus grinned, pulling on a fresh shirt, ready to walk home, a quiet brownstone 10 blocks away, Tanya due tomorrow. He stepped out, no guards, just himself, the street alive with horns and sun. Crowds nodded, some clapping, a kid shouting, "You the man, Judge." He waved, head high, the concussion's fog gone, Evelyn's suit a ghost, his legacy secure. He turned onto Juniper Street, his brownstone's oak door in sight, when a ping cut. The air a bullet grazing his shoulder, ripping fabric, drawing blood. Marcus dove behind a mailbox, heart hammering, pain flaring, as screams erupted, pedestrians scattering. A second shot cracked, missing, glass shattering in a parked car. He crawled, blood soaking his sleeve, spotting a rooftop shadow. A sniper. Sun's skull tattoo glinting on an arm. Vance's crew, no doubt. Cops swarmed late, their sirens a wail as the shooter vanished, tires screeching blocks away. Marcus stood, shaking, a bystander's towel pressed to his wound, the crowd filming, X already buzzing. Langston shot, trending. He limped home, medics, trailing, stitching him on his couch, 75 degrees, the oak door locked but useless. Calvin rushed in, face grey, saying it's not over. Marcus nodded, shoulder burning, head pounding again, the TV blaring. Langston targeted, DOJ suspends him. His phone lit up, a DOJ email, formal, cold, citing a new probe. Funds funneled to black radicals, tied to his court budget. Millions, allegedly siphoned. Marcus cursed, the numbers fake, his accounts frozen, mid-read, bank apps dead. X flipped. Langston thief rising. Posts calling him corrupt. A race hustler rigging justice. The sniper's miss was no accident, a warning paired with this frame, surgical. Evelyn's cash behind it, buying hackers, buying scopes. His release, Holt's confession, had felt like checkmate, but this was check, his career gutted, his life hanging by threads. Marcus sat, blood crusting, the loft's fortress a lie. Calvin scrolled evidence, screenshots, fake transfers, a hacker's IP buried in Evelyn's shell companies, Vance's shadow lurking. The crowd's cheers, hours old, were ash. The DOJ's probe wasn't justice but a blade, assuming a black judge had to steal. The trope as old as his cuffs. Tanya's call cut through. Stay alive, Marcus. Her voice a tether, but the sniper's aim, the frozen accounts, hit deeper than jails. Baton, worse than the bomb's nails. He'd trusted the FBI, leaned on Jada, but someone, Vance, Evelyn, a ghost, knew his moves, turning freedom into a cage. Marcus stared at his oak door, bullets echo loud, knowing the next strike would aim for his heart, not his shoulder. Comment. Number 1, if you're raging at this frame-up, hit like to fight for truth and subscribe to see Marcus claw back, because the lies are cutting deeper. Who's behind this sniper's scope? And what's the next move to crush him? Marcus Langston pressed a gauze pad to his bleeding shoulder, the sniper's bullet still burning where it had grazed him hours ago outside his Atlanta brownstone. His ribs, taped from jail beatings, pulsed under a torn shirt, and his head throbbed, the concussion's fog lingering like a bad dream. At 55 as Chief Justice, he'd survived a false arrest, Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit, a firebombed car, a rigged felony, hacked emails, a bombed rally, a drug frame, and now a DOJ suspension for fake radical funds, his bank accounts frozen. The loft where he hid a donor's spare was 70 degrees, all steel and shadows, but Atlanta's 99-degree night pressed against the glass, mirroring the heat in his veins. Evelyn's empire, funding officer Greg Vance, the Sons. Of Liberty, DA Roger Tate had tried to kill him, and Marcus was done running. He stood wincing and grabbed a burner phone, texting Calvin Reed, his lawyer, "Find Evelyn's gala." The sniper's miss wasn't luck, it was a taunt, tied to the DOJ probe framing him as a thief. Holt's confession, caught on tape, had freed him from jail, but Evelyn's hacker had flipped it, painting him corrupt, a black judge stealing justice. Marcus knew where to hit. Evelyn's annual real estate gala, a glitzy affair at the Fox Theater 10 miles away, packed with her allies. Calvin called, voice tight. "It's tonight, 8 sharp, but security's a fortress." Marcus didn't care. He'd crash it, expose her bank ties to Vance's bomb. Tate silenced the Sons' war. He pulled on a black suit, shoulder stinging, and slipped out. A cab idling in the alley, Calvin's driver loyal. The Fox Theater glowed, red velvet and gold, a 75-degree oasis for Atlanta's elite, 500 in tuxes and gowns, sipping champagne under chandeliers. Marcus arrived at 8, no guards, just grit, his suit hiding bloodstains. He flashed an old invite from a clerk's hack, slipping past ushers, the crowd unaware of his face, X's lies louder than truth. Evelyn stood on a balcony stage, 55, ash blonde, her emerald dress a lie of grace toasting her skyline empire. Marcus waited, heart pounding, until her speech peaked. Atlanta thrives on trust, and strode forward, seizing a mic from a stunned band. "I'm Marcus Langston," he said, voice thunder, "and this woman funds hate." He held up Jada's printouts. Bank transfers to Vance, Tate, the Sons, naming the alley bats, the rally's dead, Keisha, Jamal. His words raw, cutting. The crowd gasped, phones rising, streaming live to millions. Evelyn's smile freezing as Marcus read numbers, $50,000 to Liberty Holdings, wired before the bomb. Boos erupted, not for him, but her, glasses clinking down, a senator storming out. Evelyn stammered, security lunging, but Marcus dodged, shouting, "She bought my cuffs, my blood, your city's shame." Guards grabbed him, but the damage was done. X lit up. Evelyn exposed reborn, clips of his speech viral, 30 million views in minutes. He was hustled out, Calvin's car waiting, and grinned, shoulder bleeding but spirit soaring. The gala's chaos was his gavel, smashing Evelyn's mask, and by dawn, news hit. DOJ lifting his suspension, citing new evidence, Jada's files confirmed clean. Calvin drove to a new hideout, a motel off Interstate 20, 70 degrees, neon buzzing. Marcus sank into a chair, painkillers dulling his arm, watching TV, anchors praising his courage, Evelyn's office raided again. He texted Tanya, his sister, safe in Savannah. "We're winning." The lawsuit felt brittle, Vance's sons scattered, Tate's career ash. He slept, dreaming of court, his bench, until a call woke him at 6. Calvin panicked. "Check X, now." Marcus grabbed his phone, heart sinking, and saw it. A video, his face, his voice confessing to the DOJ fraud. "I funneled millions, used radicals to rig cases." It was a deepfake, flawless. His gala speech warped, eyes too still, but X didn't care. Langston Thief roared, 60 million views, crowds turning, allies mute. He froze, the motel's walls closing, but a worse call hit. Tanya, sobbing. His nephew Malik, 16, was gone, snatched from Savannah's motel lot, a note left. "Retract the gala or he dies." Marcus's knees buckled, ribs forgotten, the deepfake a jab, this a blade. Vance, uncaught, had struck, the son's skull tattoo on the note's photo, Malik's scared eyes staring. Marcus dialed Calvin, voice steel. "I'm going." Calvin begged him to wait, but Marcus was done with traps. He grabbed a burner, traced Vance's haunts from Jada's files. A warehouse, 30 miles out, Sun's base. Calvin's driver sped. Him there, 90-degree dawn breaking. Marcus's shoulder leaking, his head clear, Malik's laugh all he saw. The warehouse was rust and weeds, a Sun's flag flapping. 70 degrees inside, dank with oil. Marcus crept in, hoodie up, spotting Malik tied to a chair, Vance pacing, wiry blonde mustache twitching, a pistol loose in his hand. Two thugs. Guarded, but Marcus moved fast, ribs screaming, grabbed a pipe, cracked one's skull, tackled the other, fists raw, blood slick. Vance spun, gun raised, but Marcus lunged, pipe swinging, catching Vance's wrist, the shot wild. Malik screamed, rope fraying as Marcus cut him free, dragging him out, Vance dazed, cursing fraud. They hit Calvin's car, tires screeching, Malik, shaking, safe but pale, Marcus's shoulder gushing. The chase a blur to a hospital, 72 degrees, medics stitching fast. Calvin met them, X still burning with the deepfake, crowds rioting. Not for Marcus but against him, shops smashed, Tanya's motel swarmed, believing the fake. Marcus sat, Malik's hand in his, the boy whispering thanks, but the TV blared. Langston's lies spark violence, looping the confession. DOJ pausing his reinstatement, allies fleeing. The gala's truth, Jada's proof, Holt's tape, all buried under Vance's hack. Evelyn's cash-buying pixels, not just bullets. Marcus's shoulder stung, but Malik's eyes hurt worse, the deepfake stealing more than the bomb's nails. Deeper than the sniper's graze. He'd saved his nephew, shamed Evelyn, but Vance's lie was a tide, drowning his city, his fight, and Marcus knew the next blow would aim for all he had left. Marcus Langston sat in a sterile hospital room, the 70-degree air sharp with antiseptic, his shoulder bandaged from the sniper's graze, ribs taped from old beatings, and head still foggy from a concussion that clung like damp rot. His nephew Malik, 16, slept in the next bed, safe after Marcus's warehouse rescue. But the boy's shallow breaths were no comfort. At 55, as Chief Justice, Marcus had endured a false arrest. Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit, a firebombed car, a rigged felony, hacked emails, a bombed rally, a drug frame, a DOJ suspension, and a deepfake confession, sparking riots. Atlanta's 100-degree dawn burned outside, but Marcus's blood ran cold. X's venom. Langston Thief, at 70 million views, drowning his gala expose of Evelyn's crimes. The riots, torching shops and Tanya's motel had forced him here. Hiding with Malik's rescue, the only light in a city turned against him. His burner phone buzzed, Calvin Reed's name flashing, his lawyer's voice a low rasp. "Feds are circling, but I got a guy." Marcus nodded, wincing as his shoulder tugged, and listened. Calvin had a contact, U.S. Marshal Eli Warren, a grizzled vet who'd worked security for Marcus's court years back. Eli was clean, Calvin swore, and could dig into Officer Greg Vance, the Sons of Liberty's new head, who'd kidnapped Malik and spun the deepfake. Marcus agreed, texting Eli's number, his fingers stiff but sure. He'd trusted wrong, Lena's firebomb, Tate's frame, but Eli's record was solid, his handshake firm in memory. Marcus dialed, voice steady, laying out Vance's warehouse. The bomb's nails, the fake video. Eli grunted, promising to raid Vance's hideout, a junkyard 40 miles out, by noon. "Stay low, Judge," he said, and Marcus exhaled, hope a fragile spark. He watched Malik sleep, the boy's face soft, unscarred by the sun's ropes, and thought of Tanya, holed up in a new Savannah safe house, her voice raw when he'd called. Keep him alive. The gala's triumph, Evelyn booed, her bank ties exposed, had led to this. Vance's counterstrike stealing Malik, the deepfake stealing trust. Marcus's reinstatement, briefly won, was paused, the DOJ spooked by riots blaming him. He stood, ribs protesting, and paced, the hospital's hum a faint shield. Eli's raid could end Vance, break the Suns, maybe loosen Evelyn's grip, her cash still buying lies. Marcus texted Calvin to prep a statement, picturing his bench, his gavel, if the feds moved true. By 10, news flickered on the room's TV. Marshals raid Suns base, suspect killed. Marcus leaned forward, heart racing, as footage showed Eli's team storming a junkyard, tires and rust under smoke. Vance's body bagged, his blonde mustache stark against a sheet. The anchor said Vance resisted, shot dead, his pistol unfired, the Suns' cash, bombs, guns, seized. X shifted. Vance down. Trending, posts cheering Marcus, some calling him avenged. Calvin burst in grinning, suit rumpled, saying Eli's team found Vance's laptop, emails tying him to Evelyn's shells, deepfake software open. "You're clear, Judge," Calvin said, slapping his back, ribs flaring. Marcus smiled, Malik stirring. The hospital crowd outside, hundreds now chanting Langston lives, signs up, not bricks. They moved him to a downtown suite, a judge's guest quarters, 72 degrees, oak and leather, cops guarding, not hunting. By dusk, Atlanta rallied, 5,000 in a plaza, not rioting but singing, news vans streaming, 60 million watching. Marcus spoke from a balcony, ribs taped but voice strong, thanking Eli, mourning Keisha and Jamal, vowing reform. The crowd roared, hands raised, and Calvin whispered, "DOJ's calling tomorrow, full reinstatement." Marcus nodded, Tanya texting joy, Malik at his side, bandages off. He slept, the suite's quiet deep, dreaming of court. His sister's laugh. The Suns. Skull tattoo fading, Evelyn's empire dust. Vance's death felt like closure. The riot stilled, his name rising, a hero's crown restored. Morning broke, the suite's windows framing a calmer city, 95 degrees at 7. Marcus shaved, shoulder stiff but healing, and checked. Cat Langston vindicated at 80 million. Holt's confession looping. Vance's laptop damning Evelyn. He ate eggs, coffee strong, Calvin planning a presser to seal his return. The DOJ called, voice crisp, confirming his bench by week's end. Marcus grinned, texting Malik, joking about school, feeling whole. He'd beaten cuffs, bombs, frames, bullets. Eli's raid was his sword, cutting Vance's lies, Tate's deals, Evelyn's cash. He dressed, a grey suit, ready for court, when Calvin's call stopped him cold. "Feds hit you again." Marcus grabbed his phone, X-loading, a DOJ leak, Langston tied to TerraCell, claiming Vance's laptop named him, not Evelyn, as the Suns funder. His face flashed, gala clips spliced. With junkyard smoke, post screaming traitor. He sank to the couch, ribs tight, as Calvin rushed in, papers shaking. Federal charges, conspiracy, life in prison, Eli's signature on the warrant. Marcus's head spun, the balcony's cheers a lie, the crowd now hissing, bricks back. Eli, bought by Evelyn's last funds, a wire Jada missed, $10,000 to a marshal's cousin, had planted emails on Vance's drive, framing Marcus as the Sun's brain, a black judge turned terrorist, the trope a knife to his soul. Cops stormed the suite. No cuffs, just glares. Hauling him to a van, 70-degree steel, Atlanta's streets a blur. He called Calvin, line dead. Tanya's number blocked. Malik's hospital guarded. The feds booked him in a black site cell, 70 degrees, no windows, the air thick with damp stone. Guards stripped his suit, gave him orange, their eyes hard. Radical, one spat, echoing X's hate. Marcus stood, ribs screaming, head pounding, but they didn't wait. In a basement, water splashed, a cloth over his face, breath gone, guards. Pouring, laughing, uppity done. He choked, lungs fire, the board tilting, water endless, slurs drowning his gasps. They stopped, tossing him wet, shivering to a cell. His mind frayed. The terror charge a death sentence. His bench, a ghost. He curled on concrete, water dripping, ribs cracked anew, and saw Evelyn's game. Let him rise, then bury him deeper, Eli her pawn where Vance fell. The Plaza's song, Malik's rescue, Holt's tape, all ash. The feds weren't justice but her fist assuming a black man rigged chaos. Marcus's eyes burned, Tanya's voice faint, Malik's face fading. He'd trusted Eli, leaned on Jada, but the machine turned, and waterboarding broke what bombs couldn't. His hope, his fight. A guard slid food, a napkin tucked, Jada's scrawl, Eli's deal, bank slip, hold on. Marcus clutched it, head splitting, the note a spark, but the cell's dark screamed louder, and he knew the next trap was his last, no bench, no truth to pull him back. Marcus Langston shivered on the concrete floor of a black site cell, his orange jumpsuit soaked from waterboarding, the 70-degree air biting his bruised ribs and concussed skull. Jada's smuggled note, Eli's deal, bank slip, hold on, was tucked in his fist, a fragile spark against the dark. At 55, as Chief Justice, he'd survived a false arrest. Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit, a firebombed car, a rigged felony, hacked emails, a bombed rally, a drug frame, a sniper's bullet, a deep fake, and a federal terror cell charge. But the torture, guard slurs, water choking his lungs, had cracked his core. Atlanta's 100-degree noon pulsed outside, but Marcus was caged, life in prison looming, Evelyn's shadow tying U.S. Marshal Eli Warren, Officer Greg Vance, D.A. Roger Tate, and the Sons of Liberty into a vice. Tanya's voice, Malik's rescued face kept him breathing, but the note was his last shot. He squinted, head pounding at the cell's steel door, it slit a faint glow. The guard rotation was sloppy, Son's tattooed thug gone, a rookie now, yawning at midnight. Marcus coughed loud, collapsing to his knees, clutching his ribs, a groan real enough to sell it. The rookie rushed in, keys jangling, shouting inmate down, and Marcus moved, fast, desperate, elbow to the guard's jaw, a crack dropping him limp. He grabbed the keys, baton, and a radio crackling, check 12. His ribs screamed, shoulder, leaking blood, but he ran barefoot, through dank halls, alarms blaring as he hit a stairwell. 72 degrees dodging boots. A vent loomed rusted, and he pried it, crawling, dust choking, until he spilled into an alley. Atlanta's heat a slap, stars above, no sirens yet. He sprinted, hoodie stolen from a dumpster, ribs fire, to a payphone 6 blocks out, 98 degrees, sweat mixing with blood. Calvin Reed answered, voice shaking. Where are you? Marcus gasped Jada's note, Eli's bribe, $10,000 from Evelyn's shell. Calvin had a laptop, Jada's files backed up, and a contact, a blogger, Sam Carter's old intern, with 1 million followers. Marcus limped to a diner, 70 degrees, grease and neon, where Calvin waited, laptop open, Jada's bank slip scanned. They worked fast. Marcus dictating, voice raw, I'm Marcus Langston. Framed by Evelyn Carver, Eli Warren, the Sons, he named Tate's deals, Vance's bomb, the deepfake, waterboarding, and Eli's cash, Jada's proof, wire transfers, emails, flashing, on screen. Calvin hit send, the blog live at 3, streaming to 80 million. Langston Truth Exploding.x roared, posts sharing Marcus's face, not cuffed, not fake, but alive, bleeding, defiant. By dawn, news vans swarmed, CNN, MSNBC airing Jada's files, Eli's bank slip, Evelyn's shells. The DOJ froze, Tate resigned, and Evelyn was arrested, her penthouse sealed, assets seized in a raid. Marcus watched on a diner TV, coffee cold, ribs pulsing. Calvin grinned, saying, you broke her, Judge. Atlanta rallied. 10,000 outside the courthouse, not rioting but chanting Ren State Langston, signs up, no bricks. At noon, the DOJ called Calvin. Marcus was cleared, charges dropped, his bench restored by tomorrow. He exhaled, Tanya texting, "Malik's proud, her Savannah safe house calm." The blogger's post hit 90 million, the deepfake debunked, Holt's confession looping, Vance's laptop damning. Marcus stood, shoulder stiff, and saw his brownstone in his mind. Tanya's visit, Malik's laugh, a life reclaimed. Calvin drove him to a hotel, 74 degrees, clean sheets, no neon, cops guarding, not hunting. Marcus slept, dreaming, of Keisha and Jamal, their rally deaths avenged, Evelyn's empire ash. By dusk he was at the federal courthouse, a grey stone giant, reinstated early, special session, a civil rights case, 500 spectators packed, 70 degrees, oak. Pews gleaming. He took the bench, gavel heavy, his suit crisp despite scars, Tanya in the front row, Malik beside her, smiling. He opened the case, voice steady, ruling on bail reform, each word a brick rebuilding justice. The gallery nodded, reporters scribbling. Hex streaming live. Langston rules trending at 100 million. He felt it. Control, truth, his city's pulse syncing with his own. He paused mid-ruling to honor Keisha, Jamal, their names soft but firm, the gallery silent, Tanya's eyes wet. The session stretched, Marcus sharp, his concussions fog. Gone, ribs a dull ache. He glanced at Tanya, her nod a tether, and moved to close, gavel raised, when a rumble shook the room. The ceiling cracked, plaster raining. A blast tearing through, pipe bomb, nails flying, the sun's last gasp, hidden in a vent. Screams erupted, Malik pulling Tanya down, Marcus diving, gavel lost as stone fell, crushing pews, blood pooling, 72 degrees now, dust and chaos. His ears rang, ribs snapped anew, shoulder gushing, but he crawled, glass-cutting palms, finding Tanya safe. Malik bruised but breathing, spectators fleeing, cops swarming. The bomb's toll hit, 3 clerks injured, 1 critical, the courtroom. Ruin! X blaming Marcus, of Langston curse rising, post screaming he provoked it. Marcus stood swaying, medics rushing, Tanya's hand in his, Malik's eyes wide. He saw the trap, Evelyn jailed, Vance dead, but the sun's remnants, leaderless, had struck, their hate outliving orders, slurs spray-painted on rubble. Fraud. Dice. News looped the blast, anchors twisting his ruling. Langston's return sparks terror, his reinstatement a spark, not a shield. Calvin ran in, face grey, saying, "They're pinning it on you," the DOJ pausing again, allies scattering, the crowd outside, once 10,000, now throwing rocks, believing Marcus cursed, not crowned. He helped Tanya up, Malik limping, medics stitching his shoulder on sight, 70 degrees, dust settling. The clerk's blood, names unknown yet, burned worse than Keisha's, Jamal's, a debt he couldn't pay. He'd broadcast truth, broken. Evelyn won his bench, thought it checkmate, but the sun's bomb was check, flipping hero to villain, his ruling drowned in screams. Tanya whispered, "You're alive." But Malik's silence cut deeper, the boy's trust fraying. Jada's note, Eli's fall had freed him, but freedom was a lie, the courthouse is stone his cage now. Atlanta's cheers, Ash. He'd saved his family, shamed the machine, but the bomb's nails hit harder than water, deeper than bullets, and Marcus knew the last fight was coming. No gavel, no truth, to stop it. He limped outside, Tanya's arm around him, Malik trailing. Sirens red against dusk, 96 degrees, the city's heat a fist. Calvin shouted about appeals, but Marcus saw X, riots reborn, shops burning, his name cursed, the sun's ghost laughing. The lawsuit, the frames, the deaths, all led here. A courtroom grave, his legacy teetering. He'd trusted Jada, leaned on Calvin, but the machine turned, and Tanya's presence meant to heal was a target now, her visit a risk he'd missed. He clutched her hand, Malik's breath behind, and scanned the crowd, knowing Evelyn's shadow. Even jailed wasn't done, and the next blow would aim for his soul, not his bones. Marcus Langston stood in the shadow of Atlanta's federal courthouse, its shattered facade looming under a blood-red dusk, the air thick with 94-degree heat and the acrid tang of ash. His shoulder, stitched from a sniper's graze, throbbed beneath a black suit. His ribs, cracked anew in the bombing, bound tight, each breath a knife. At 55, as Chief Justice, he'd clawed through a false arrest. Evelyn Carver's $5 million lawsuit, a firebombed car, a rigged felony, hacked emails, a bombed rally, a drug frame, a sniper's bullet, a deepfake, federal torture, and a courtroom blast that had buried his hope. The bomb, a Sons of Liberty remnant's vengeance, had collapsed the ceiling, injuring Clarks, and left his sister Tanya, visiting to see him rule, presumed dead beneath rubble. Atlanta's streets churned, riots flaring, X screaming such a Langston curse at 100 million views, blaming him for chaos. Marcus gripped a candle, its flame trembling, leading a vigil for Tanya, his heart a wound deeper than any scar. The plaza held 5,000, faces black, white, brown, their candles a sea of light, 70 degrees under cooling oaks, but the crowd's silence screamed louder than the bomb's roar. Malik, his 16-year-old nephew, stood beside him, eyes red, Tanya's absence a void between them. Marcus had saved Malik from Vance's ropes, exposed Evelyn's empire, won his bench back, only for the son's nails to steal it all. His broadcast Jada's proof, Eli's bribe, had jailed Evelyn, cleared his name, but the bombing flipped it, X calling him a spark for terror. His reinstatement paused, allies gone. He raised the candle, voice raw, and spoke. Tanya was my anchor. Your sister, our fight. She believed in justice, and I'll rebuild it for her. The crowd swayed, some weeping, others nodding, their light steady, a flicker of trust in a city torn. Marcus named Keisha, Jamal, the Clarks, vowing their deaths wouldn't silence him, his words a gavel, striking hate's root. He paused, Malik's, hand brushing his, and saw Tanya's smile, her Savannah porch, her laugh when he'd won his robe. She'd come to cheer his return, sat front row, and now was dust. The bomb's toll unconfirmed but heavy, medics grim. Marcus's eyes burned, but he stood tall, the vigil streaming to 90 million, Houndra Langston vigil trending, some posts soft. He's still fighting, others vicious. He killed her. Calvin Reed, his lawyer, flanked him, whispering, DOJ's watching, might lift the pause. Marcus nodded, candle dripping wax, picturing his bench, a courtroom rebuilt, Tanya's name carved in. Law. The crowd sang low, a hymn Tanya loved, and Marcus joined, voice cracking, feeling her near, the plaza a heartbeat, Atlanta's rage cooling, his legacy, scarred, bloodied, holding firm. He led them longer past midnight, 72 degrees, stars sharp, shaking hands, hugging strangers, Malik clinging close. A pastor prayed words of peace, and Marcus exhaled, the vigil's glow a shield, Tanya's loss a fire to fight on. He'd broken Evelyn, caged Holt, killed Vance, shamed Tate. Eli, every blow met, every trap sprung. The crowd thinned, Malik yawning, and Marcus turned to leave, Calvin's car idling when his phone buzzed. A hospital, voice urgent. Tanya Langston, critical but alive, coma, ICU. Marcus froze, wax spilling, Malik gasping, the plaza spinning. She'd been pulled from rubble, pulse faint, head trauma, but breathing, her heart stubborn. He ran, Calvin driving, 70-degree hospital halls a blur, finding Tanya, tubes, bandages, alive. Malik sobbed, clutching her hand, Marcus staring. Tears falling, the vigil's weight lifting. She wasn't gone, not yet. Her coma a battle, not a grave. Doctors warned weeks, maybe months, but Marcus grinned, Malik laughing through tears, the room 74 degrees, hope a pulse. News caught it. Langston's sister lives, X shifting. Sayasino Tanya strong trending. 110 million views, crowds outside cheering, not cursing. The DOJ called Calvin, full reinstatement locked. Marcus's bench his tomorrow, no pause, no probe. He stood by Tanya's bed, Malik asleep, and saw his path court reform, her name on every ruling, a legacy sealed. Atlanta rallied 20,000 now, signs up, riots dead, his name hero again, the bomb's ash swept clean, Evelyn's shadow jailed, fading. He stepped out, dawn breaking, 90 degrees, hospital lot calm. Cops saluting, not cuffing. Marcus breathed, ribs easier, shoulder healing, picturing Tanya waking, Malik graduating, his gavel falling. He'd won, hadn't he? The vigil's hymn, Tanya's pulse felt final, a checkmate after traps, cuffs, bombs, water, lies. Calvin texted, "Court's ready, Judge," and Marcus nodded, ready to rule, to heal. He walked, brownstone bound, the city's hum kind when X pinged. A video Officer Travis Holt thought shamed in a suit, no cuffs, reading a manifesto. Langston framed me, stole justice, rigged it. Black. Marcus stopped, heart sinking. The clip viral, 120 million. Views. Posts flipping. Holt truth rising, crowds turning, bricks back. Holt's voice smooth lied. I confessed under duress. Langston's mob paid me down. It was nonsense, his tape real. But X ate it, riots sparking, shops burning. Tanya's hospital swarmed, cops wavering. Marcus scrolled, hands shaking, seeing Evelyn smirk, jailed but wired. A final cash drop to Holt, $10,000 via a guard, Jada's files blind to it. The manifesto leaned hard. Black judge cheats, always will, slurs reborn. Assuming Marcus rigged truth, a trope older than his cuffs. Tanya's pulse, the vigil's sea, crumbled. Malik's trust, asleep beside her, teetered. Marcus stood, dawn's light harsh, 92 degrees, and saw the trap. Evelyn's check, Holt's play, flipping hero to fraud. His bench a target, not a throne. He ran, brownstone close, 76-degree halls, locking doors, Calvin calling, "Hide, it's bad." X screamed, "Langston lies reborn." The hospital's crowd now foes, Tanya's coma a risk, Malik's laugh a ghost. Marcus grabbed his phone, texting Jada, "Find Holt's wire." But the city roared, sirens, glass, his name cursed again. The DOJ paused, news sneering, Langston's win a lie, his rulings questioned, Clark's blood on his hands. He'd saved Tanya, shamed Evelyn, ruled. True, but Holt's lie was a tide, drowning his light, deeper than bombs, worse than water. Marcus sank to his couch, oak door rattling, and saw fire, a Molotov cocktail arcing through night, sun's skull painted on glass, the room 70 degrees, flame blooming, his fight endless. He stood, ribs fire, shoulder blood, and faced the window, the bottle's glow, a star. Tanya lived, Malik breathed, but Holt's manifesto, Evelyn's cash, had struck where cuffs couldn't, his city's soul believing him fraud, not judge. The vigil's hymn was silent, the plaza's candles snuffed, but Marcus clenched fists. Jada's spark alive, Calvin's call ringing. He'd climb again, gavel or none, Tanya's pulse his law, but the fire spread, glass cracking, and he ran, alley-bound, 90 degrees, Atlanta's hate a wall, no bench, no truth to hold it back. Marcus Langston's saga reveals the brutal toll of systemic racism, showing how power bends truth to crush the defiant. His journey, false arrests, lawsuits, bombs, betrayal, teaches that justice is a fight, not a gift, especially for a black gay. Judge daring to challenge hate. Resilience, Marcus proves, isn't just surviving cuffs or bullets, but standing tall when allies turn, when lies paint you villain. The story underscores the cost of silence. Marcus's loudest wins came from speaking, exposing. Evelyn's cash, Vance's bombs, despite risks. Yet it warns of hate's persistence. Even jailed, Evelyn's reach sparked Holt's final lie, proving racism doesn't die, it morphs. Tanya's survival, Malik's trust, show family as anchor, grounding Marcus when courts failed. The lesson stings. Systems built on bias demand constant dismantling, and truth, though battered, is the only blade sharp enough. Marcus's vigil, his last run from fire, screams defiance. Never bow, even when the city burns your name. For us, it's a call to question power, to amplify the silenced, to fight where Marcus stood, knowing the machine waits, ready to strike. Again, what's your take on Marcus's fight? Comment below if you'd stand with him, hit like to honor his truth, subscribe for more battles, and share to spread his fire. Thanks for joining this journey. Here's to courage that outlives. The flames.